Han Sol sat in the back row of the great meeting hall, his old hands resting on his knees. The chair was too small for him, but he did not complain. Around him, aliens from dozens of worlds talked in voices that sounded like music, wind, and water. Some looked like tall trees with many arms. Others had skin that changed colors like a rainbow. A few had too many eyes or no eyes at all. The human was the only one of his kind in this part of the hall. He wore a simple gray suit that had seen better days. His hair was white now, cut short like it had been for 40 years. Small lines around. His eyes showed he smiled often, but also that he had seen much in his 67 years of life. The Vega Prime space station was bigger than most cities. It hung in space like a silver wheel, spinning slowly to make gravity for the thousands of beings inside. This week, it hosted the biggest peace meeting in galactic history. Leaders from 200 worlds had come to talk about trade, borders, and how to stop wars before they started. Han Sol was not a leader. His name tag said Military Consultant, Earth Delegation, but that was just a nice way to say he was retired. The Earth government had asked him to come because they needed someone who understood how soldiers think, but mostly, he just sat and listened. The motion to expand trade routes through the Centauri sector is now open for discussion, announced the speaker. She was a tall being with blue skin and 4 arms, each one moving as she talked. Her voice came from a device that made every word clear in all languages. A creature that looked like a walking crystal stood up. When it spoke, its body rang like bells. The Altarian Republic agrees with this motion. Our ships need safe passage to deliver medical supplies to the outer colonies. Near Han Sol, 2 aliens whispered to each other. One was Veltar, who looked like a large cat but walked on 2 legs. His fur was silver, and his eyes were the color of gold. The other was Dr. Rixon, a scientist from Centauri Prime. She had pale green skin and a head that was larger than most beings, filled with a brain that could solve math problems faster than computers. "Do you think the humans will vote yes?" Veltar asked in a soft voice. Dr. Rixon looked at her data pad. "They usually do. Humans like trade. It helps their economy grow." "Strange creatures. Humans," Veltar said, cleaning one of his claws. "So young compared to us, but they learn. Fast. Too fast, some say," Dr. Rixon replied. "They went from riding horses to flying between stars in just a few hundred years. Most races take thousands." Han Sol could hear them talking but did not turn around. He had learned long ago that people often said more when they thought no one was listening. Besides, he found their opinions interesting. To them, humans were new and unpredictable. To him, his people were just people. The debate continued. A delegate who looked like a giant spider argued about shipping costs. Another being, made of what seemed like living metal, worried about pirates attacking the new trade routes. Each speaker was given exactly 5 minutes, and a soft bell rang when their time was up. Han Sol watched it all with quiet eyes. He had been to many meetings like this during his years in the military. Different rooms, different problems, but the same basic thing. Beings trying to figure out how to live together without fighting. "The chair recognizes Ambassador Kira of the Pacifist Coalition," the speaker announced. A being that looked almost human, except for her silver eyes and skin that glowed softly, stepped forward. "Honored delegates," she began, "we must remember that peace is not just the absence of war. It is the presence of understanding. These trade routes will bring our peoples together. They will help us see that we are more alike than different." Several aliens nodded. Others made sounds that Han Sol guessed meant agreement in their languages. He found himself nodding too. The ambassador spoke well. During a break, aliens moved around the hall in small groups. Some went to get food from machines that could make any meal from any world. Others looked at the large windows that showed the stars outside. Han Sol stayed in his seat, watching the crowd. A young human woman walked over to him. She had short black hair and wore the blue uniform of the Earth Science Corps. Her name tag read, Dr. Yeonhee Park, Xenobiology. "Captain Han Sol?" she asked. "I'm Dr. Park. I've heard about you." Han Sol smiled. "Just Han Sol now. I retired from the military 15 years ago." "Still, it's an honor," Dr. Park said, sitting in the empty chair next to him. My grandfather told me stories about the colonial wars. He said you were quite the soldier. I did my job, Han Sol said simply. Nothing more, nothing less. Doctor. Park looked like she wanted to ask more questions, but the break was ending. Delegates returned to their seats as the speaker called for order. The afternoon session was about technology sharing. A delegate from a world where beings lived underwater wanted to trade their deep-sea mining tools for Earth's medical knowledge. A race of beings who lived in the cold space between stars offered their ice-cutting technology for food preservation methods. Han Sol found it fascinating how different worlds had solved different problems. Humans were good at making tools and fixing things quickly. The water breathers were experts at finding metals and minerals. The space dwellers knew how to keep things cold for thousands of years without using power. As the day went on, he noticed the same thing he always noticed at these meetings. Most problems were not really about technology or trade or borders. They were about fear. Fear of the unknown. Fear of being cheated. Fear of losing what you already had. But there was hope, too. Every time a delegate from one world thanked another for help, or when they laughed at the same joke, Han Sol saw the future his generation had fought for. A galaxy where different beings could sit in the same room and work together instead of shooting at each other. Near the end of the day, a small problem came up. Some delegates wanted to add new safety rules for cargo ships. Others said the rules would cost too much money. The debate got heated, with several beings talking at once. Han Sol noticed that the younger delegates looked confused and worried. This was probably their first big meeting. They did not know that arguments like this were normal and usually got solved with compromise. He caught the eye of a young Altarian in the row ahead of him. The being's fur was changing from silver to dark gray, which Han Sol had learned meant worry. Han Sol gave a small smile and nodded toward the speaker, who was calmly letting each side talk. The message was clear. Let the process work. The young Altarian's fur lightened a little, and he nodded back. When the session ended for the day, delegates filed out slowly. Han Sol waited until most were gone before standing up. His knees were not as good as they used to be, and crowds made him uncomfortable these days. "Excuse me," said a voice behind him. Han Sol turned to see Veltar, the cat-like being who had been sitting nearby. "I could not help but notice how calmly you watched today's debate," Veltar said. "Most beings get nervous when voices are raised." "Experience," Han Sol said. "I've seen much worse than a disagreement about cargo rules." "You were military, yes? Your posture suggests training." Han Sol nodded. "Many years ago. Now I just try to learn something new every day." Veltar's whiskers twitched, which Han Sol thought might be a smile. "A wise approach. Perhaps we could share a meal sometime during the conference? I would enjoy hearing about Earth's perspective on galactic affairs." "I'd like that," Han Sol said. As Veltar walked away, Han Sol looked out the great window at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, a small blue world where he had a garden and a house and neighbors who brought him soup when he was sick. But for now he was here, representing his people at the biggest peace meeting in history. It was not the life he had planned when he was young and thought that problems were solved with weapons instead of words, but it was a good life, and he was grateful for it. Tomorrow would bring new debates, new problems, and new chances for different beings to understand each other a little better. Han Sol looked forward to it. Dr. Rickson walked through the station's archive section with her datapad in hand. The morning session had been about mining rights, and she wanted to research human industrial methods before the afternoon talks. The archive was a quiet place, with soft lights and the gentle hum of computers storing the knowledge of hundreds of worlds. She found a research booth and sat down. The screen in front of her lit up, showing billions of files from across the galaxy. She typed, "Human Industrial Development," and waited. The computer showed thousands of results. Most were boring reports about factories and machines, but one file caught her eye. It was marked Restricted Access, Historical Military Archive, and had a date from 15 years ago. Dr. Rickson was curious. She had the right clearance level to view most military files for her research work. She clicked on it. The file opened to show a battle report titled Kepler Station Siege, Final Analysis. Below it was a video file marked Combat Footage, Classified. She almost closed it. Dr. Rickson studied how different species thought and learned, not military history. But something made her click the video file. Maybe it was the way the humans at the conference seemed so peaceful. She wondered what they were like when they fought. The video started with a view from a security camera. It showed a large metal corridor inside what looked like a space station. The walls were damaged, with burn marks and holes. Bodies lay on the floor, but the camera was too far away to see details clearly. Text appeared on the screen. Kepler Station, Day 3 of Siege. Rebel forces have taken civilian hostages in sections 7 through 12. All attempts at negotiation have failed. Single operative inserted for extraction mission. Dr. Rickson sat forward. One soldier against an entire rebel army? That seemed impossible. FIDE. Camera view changed to show the outside of the station. It was huge, maybe 10 times bigger than Vega Prime. Parts of it were on fire. Small ships flew around it like angry insects, shooting at each other with bright energy weapons. Then the view changed again. This time it was from a helmet camera, showing what the soldier could see. Dr. Rickson realized she was seeing through the eyes of the human who had been sent in alone. The soldier moved through a maintenance tunnel that was barely wide enough for one person. There was no sound except breathing and the distant noise of weapons firing. The soldier's hands appeared in view sometimes, holding tools and weapons that Dr. Rickson did not recognize. The tunnel ended at a sealed door. The soldier attached something to it and moved back. There was a bright flash, and the door disappeared. Smoke filled the camera view for a moment. When it cleared, Dr. Rickson saw a large room full of rebel soldiers. They wore mismatched armor and carried weapons that looked old and poorly maintained. There were maybe 20 of them. What happened next made Dr. Rickson gasp. The human moved through the room like water flowing around rocks. Every movement had a purpose. Every step was planned. In less than 30 seconds, all 20 rebels were down, and the human had not been hit once. But it was not just the speed or skill that shocked her. It was how calm everything seemed. The soldier never rushed, never made extra movements, never wasted energy. It was like watching someone who had done this exact thing 1,000 times before. The camera view moved to another door. This one was locked with an electronic system. The soldier pulled out a small device and connected it to the door's control panel. Numbers flashed on a tiny screen. In 5 seconds, the door opened. Inside were civilians, men, women, and children from several different species. They looked scared and hurt, but alive. The soldier knelt down next to a small alien child who was crying. "It's okay," said a voice from the camera. It was calm and gentle. "You're safe now. Can you walk?" The child nodded. The soldier helped the civilians stand up and pointed them toward the tunnel. "Follow this tunnel until you see green lights," the voice said. "There will be people there to help you." As the civilians left, Dr. Rickson heard explosions from somewhere else in the station. The mission was not over. The camera view changed to show a map of the station. Red dots marked where rebel groups were located. There were 12 groups, each with 15 to 30 soldiers. The human had to reach each group and free the hostages they held. Dr. Rickson watched in amazement as the soldier moved through the station. Sometimes, the human used the maintenance tunnels. Sometimes the soldier climbed through damaged areas where the walls had been blown open. Once, the human crawled through a space that was so small, Dr. Rickson could not understand how a person fit through it. Each group of rebels was defeated the same way, quickly, quietly, and completely. The soldier used different tactics each time. Sometimes it was surprise, coming from a direction the rebels did not expect. Sometimes it was technology, using devices that confused their sensors or made their weapons stop working. Once, the human simply walked through the front door and talked the rebels into surrendering. But the most incredible part was how the soldier treated the hostages. Every time, the human stopped to check on injured people, gave water to those who needed it, and spoke calmly to children who were scared. This was not just a warrior. This was someone who cared about protecting people. The video showed 12 hours passing in fast forward, 12 groups of rebels, hundreds of hostages freed, and still the human kept going. The final scene was in the station's command center. The rebel leader was there with his last group of soldiers and the most important, hostages, the station commander's family. This fight was different. The rebels knew the human was coming. They had set traps and were ready. The battle lasted almost an hour, and for the first time, Dr. Rickson saw the soldier get hurt. Blood appeared on the camera lens. But even wounded, the human never stopped. Every move was still planned, still purposeful. When the rebel leader finally surrendered, the soldier was standing in a room full of defeated enemies, holding a small alien child who had been hurt in the fighting. "Medical team to command center," the soldier said into a radio. "We have wounded civilians who need help immediately." The video ended with text that appeared on the screen. "Mission completed. All 347 hostages recovered alive. Rebel force neutralized with minimal casualties. Operative requested immediate transfer to medical leave." Dr. Rickson sat in silence for a long moment. She had just watched one human soldier defeat an entire army and save hundreds of lives. The file said it had really happened. This was not a movie or a training simulation. This was real. She looked at the soldier's name in the file. It was listed only as Operative Ghost, Identity Classified. Dr. Rickson heard footsteps behind her. She turned to see Veltar walking toward her booth. "Dr. Rickson," he said, "I was looking for you. I wanted to discuss the human delegation before this afternoon's session." "Veltar," she said, her voice strange. "You need to see this." She played the video again from the beginning. Veltar watched with growing amazement. His golden eyes got wider, and his fur stood up along his neck. "This cannot be real," he whispered. "The archive says it is," Dr. Rickson replied. "This happened 15 years ago. Other beings in the archive began to notice. A delegate from the Crystal Federation came over to see what they were watching. Then Ambassador Kara appeared, drawn by the quiet crowd that was forming. Soon, a dozen aliens were watching the video together. Some made sounds of disbelief. Others asked questions that no one could answer. All of them stared at the screen as the human soldier moved through the station like a force of nature. "How is this possible?" asked the crystal delegate, his body ringing with confused tones. "I have studied human physiology," Dr. Rickson said slowly. "They are strong for their size, and they heal quickly. But this is beyond what any single being should be able to do." "Look at the tactical analysis," Veltar said, pointing at data that appeared beside the video. "The computer says this soldier used 47 different combat techniques, 17 types of technology, and showed expert knowledge of station design, rebel psychology, and hostage rescue procedures." Ambassador Kara was very quiet. Finally, she spoke. "Where is this soldier now?" Dr. Rickson checked the file again. "It just says the operative retired from active duty after this mission. No other information." "Retired?" Veltar's whiskers twitched. "Someone with these abilities just stopped fighting?" "Perhaps that makes them more dangerous," said a voice from the back of the group. It was Commander Zalvin from the Rigel Defense Corps, a tall being with blue skin and 3 eyes. "A warrior who chooses when to fight is more frightening than one who cannot stop fighting." The group watched the video 2 more times. Each viewing showed new details they had missed. The way the soldier planned each move, how every decision was made to protect innocent people, the complete lack of wasted effort or unnecessary violence. "We should inform our delegations about this," Commander Zalvin said. "If humans have soldiers like this, we need to reconsider our security arrangements." As the aliens began to leave, Dr. Rickson stayed behind. She copied the video file to her personal device and read through the full battle report. The more she learned, the more questions she had. The soldier in the video had skills that took most beings decades to learn. Military training, advanced. Technology use, psychology, medicine, engineering, the list went on and on. But according to the file, the entire mission had been planned, and by the next morning, the video had spread through the alien delegations like fire through dry grass. Commander Zalvin had sent copies to his military advisors. Ambassador Keira had shared it with the pacifist coalition leadership. Dr. Rixon found herself answering the same questions over and over again from beings who could not believe what they had seen. In the dining hall, clusters of aliens sat around tables, watching the footage on their personal devices. The sound was turned off, but their faces showed the same shock and amazement that Dr. Rixon had felt the day before. "It is impossible," declared Sub-Commander Tel Nara, "a reptilian being from the Outer Rim territories." Her scales were a deep red color that meant she was upset. No single warrior could defeat so many enemies and save so many people. "The footage appears genuine," replied Dr. Costel, an 8-armed being who specialized in analyzing fake media. "I have run every test I know. This really happened." At another table, 3 delegates from different water worlds were having a heated discussion. They spoke in clicks and whistles that their translation devices turned into words. "Human warriors are clearly more dangerous than we thought," said the first delegate. "But notice how the soldier protected the innocent ones," said the second. "This was not mindless violence." "That makes it worse," said the third. "A mindless killer you can understand. A killer who chooses when to kill, that is truly frightening." Near the windows, Commander Zalvin stood with several other military officials. They had been studying the video all night, trying to understand the tactics they had seen. "Look at this part," Zalvin said, pointing to his screen. "The human disables 7 armed soldiers in 12 seconds. The computer analysis says each move was perfect. No wasted motion, no hesitation, no mistakes. The weapon handling is what amazes me," said General Vexmar from the Centauri Defense Force. "I count 17 different types of equipment used. Most soldiers specialize in 2 or 3 weapon systems their entire careers." "And the planning," added Colonel Yithran, a tall, insect-like being. "Every route through the station was chosen for maximum efficiency. The human knew exactly where to go and what to do at each location." Commander Zalvin nodded grimly. This was not just a skilled soldier. This was a master warrior with years of experience, perhaps decades of training. Across the dining hall, Dr. Yanhee sat alone at a small table, picking at her breakfast. She had been trying to eat when 3 different alien delegates approached her with questions about human military capabilities. "Dr. Park," said a voice behind her. She turned to see Ambassador Keira approaching with Dr. Rixon. "Ambassador," Dr. Yanhee said, standing up. "Dr. Rixon, good morning." "We were hoping you could help us understand something," Ambassador Keira said. "Have you seen the footage from Kepler Station?" Dr. Yanhee nodded slowly. "Word travels fast here." "Yes, I've seen it." "Is this normal for human soldiers?" Dr. Rixon asked. "Do many of your people have these abilities?" Dr. Yanhee sat back, down, and gestured for them to join her. "That's a complicated question. The soldier in that video was extraordinary, even by human standards. Most of our military personnel are skilled professionals, but what you saw there, that was something special." "How special?" Ambassador Keira asked. "The kind of special that gets talked about in legend," Dr. Yanhee said quietly. "I've heard stories about the Kepler Station mission. Military people still talk about it 15 years later. They call the soldier who did it the ghost of Kepler Station." "Ghost?" Dr. Rixon asked. "Because no one could catch him," Dr. Yanhee explained. "He moved through that station like he wasn't really there, like a spirit or a ghost." Ambassador Keira leaned forward. "Do you know who this soldier was?" Dr. Yanhee shook her head. "The identity was classified. High Command said it was to protect the soldier's family from revenge attacks, but honestly, I think they were also protecting the galaxy from knowing that humans could produce someone. Like that?" "What do you mean?" Dr. Rixon asked. "Think about it," Dr. Yanhee said. "If everyone knew that one human soldier could defeat an entire army, how would that change the way people see my species? Some would fear us. Others might try to hire us as mercenaries. Either way, it would make peace talks much more difficult." 3 of them sat quietly for a moment, thinking about this. "Where is this ghost now?" Ambassador Keira asked finally. "Retired, according to the files," Dr. Yanhee said. "The mission report says the soldier requested immediate transfer to inactive status after Kepler Station. Never fought again, as far as I know." "A warrior who chooses to stop fighting," Dr. Rixon said. "That is either very wise or very dangerous." "Maybe both," Dr. Yanhee replied. Meanwhile, in another part of the station, Han Sol was having a very different morning. He had gotten up early to walk through the observation decks, looking at the stars and thinking about the day's scheduled discussions. Peace talks always made him thoughtful. He found himself in a small garden area where the station grew fresh. Food for the delegates. The plants came from dozens of different worlds, but they all grew together under artificial sunlight. Han Sol found it peaceful. "Pretty flowers," said a small voice near his feet. Han Sol looked down to see a young alien child, maybe 6 years old. She looked almost human except for her silver skin and large purple eyes. She was holding the hand of an adult who was busy reading messages on a communication device. "Yes, they are," Han Sol said, kneeling down to the child's level. "Do you know what kind they are?" The child shook her head. "These are called sunflowers," Han Sol said, pointing to tall yellow flowers. "They always turn their faces toward the light, just like people should turn toward hope." The child giggled. "That's silly. Flowers don't have faces, don't they?" Han Sol asked with a smile. "Look closely." The child stared at the flowers for a moment, then her eyes got wide. "I see it! The middle part looks like a nose, and the petals are like hair." "Exactly," Han Sol said. "Once you see it, you can't unsee it." The adult with the child finished reading and looked around. When she saw Han Sol talking to the child, she rushed over with a worried expression. "Kayla, don't bother the nice man," she said in accented words. The translation device had trouble with her language. "It's no bother," Han Sol said, standing up. "She's very smart. Are you here for the conference?" "Yes. I am Dr. Sulmara from the Agricultural Coalition. This is my daughter, Kayla. We're discussing food security issues this week. Important work," Han Sol said. "Making sure everyone has enough to eat is one of the foundations of peace." Dr. Sulmara looked surprised. "You understand agriculture?" "A little," Han Sol said. "I grow vegetables in my garden back home. Nothing fancy, just tomatoes and beans and things like that. But I've learned that taking care of growing things teaches you patience." Kayla tugged on her mother's hand. "Can we see the human's garden?" Han Sol laughed. "My garden is very far away on a planet called Earth. But maybe your mother can show you the food plants they're growing here on the station." As Dr. Sulmara and her daughter walked away, Han Sol heard other voices nearby. A group of young delegates was having an intense discussion near the station information displays. "The implications are serious," one of them was saying. "If humans have warriors like this ghost of Kepler station, what does that mean for galactic security?" "Maybe we should be asking different questions," said another voice. "Why did this warrior retire? What made someone so powerful decide to stop fighting?" Han Sol paused for a moment listening. Then he continued walking toward the conference rooms. It sounded like the young delegates were discussing some kind of military matter. Han Sol hoped it would not interfere with the peace talks. In the main conference hall, the morning session was about to begin. But instead of the usual quiet conversations about trade and diplomacy, the aliens were buzzing with excited chatter about the video footage. Dr. Rixan found herself surrounded by delegates asking for her opinion on human military capabilities. Commander Zalvin was showing tactical analyses to anyone who would look. Ambassador Kara was trying to calm fears among the more peaceful species. "We must remember," she announced to a group of worried delegates, "that this footage shows one extraordinary individual, not the entire human species. We should not let fear overcome our commitment to peace." But her words seemed to have little effect. The aliens had seen something that challenged their understanding of what humans were capable of. Some were frightened, others were fascinated. All of them were talking. When Han Sol entered the hall and took his usual seat in the back, he noticed that the atmosphere was different from previous days. The aliens seemed nervous, excited, and distracted. Several times, delegates looked in his direction, though he could not understand why. Dr. Yan He approached him during the pre-session break. "Captain, Han Sol," she said. "Have you heard about the discussion regarding the Kepler station footage?" Han Sol nodded slowly. "I heard some young delegates talking about it. Old military footage, from what I understand." "Yes, Dr. Yan He said. The aliens are quite impressed by what they've seen. Some are concerned about human military capabilities. War footage often looks more dramatic than it really was. Han said calmly. "I hope it won't interfere with the peace talks." "I hope so too," Dr. He said, but she looked worried. As the security chief Telmar sat in his office, looking at files spread across his desk. He was a tall, thin being with gray skin and 3 eyes arranged in a triangle on his face. His job was to keep everyone at the conference safe, and the Kepler station footage had made that job much more complicated. "Computer, show me all information about the human delegation," he said to the air. A holographic screen appeared in front of him, displaying photos and basic information about the 12 humans attending the conference. Telmar studied each face carefully. Colonel Jamin was the obvious suspect. He was young, maybe 35, with the kind of build that suggested years of physical training. His files said he had served in 3 different conflicts and had received medals for bravery. If any human could be the ghost of Kepler Station, it would be someone like him. Major Sujin was another possibility. She was in charge of the human security detail and moved with the controlled grace of a professional soldier. Her file mentioned special operations training and classified missions. Telmar made a note to watch her more closely. There was also Captain Dong Ho, who was listed as a communications expert, but had the alert eyes of someone who had seen combat. And Lieutenant Min Seok, whose job was officially logistics coordination, but who carried himself like he knew how to use the weapons he was authorized to bear. Telmar dismissed the others as unlikely candidates. Dr. He was clearly a scientist, not a warrior. The 2 diplomats were soft civilians who probably had never held weapons. The economic advisors looked like they spent their time with numbers, not battles, and then there was Han Sol. Telmar looked at the old human's file again. It listed his age as 67, and his current job as retired military consultant. The service record was surprisingly short, with most details marked as classified. But what was there showed 42 years in the human military, with the last entry being a transfer to inactive status 15 years ago, the same time as the Kepler station mission. But Telmar dismissed the idea quickly. Han was old, gray-haired, and quiet. He spent his time listening to debates and occasionally asking gentle questions about galactic trade policies. He had even been seen talking to children in the station's garden areas. Whatever the ghost of Kepler Station looked like now, it probably was not a grandfather who grew vegetables. "Computer, analyze the combat footage and create a psychological profile of the operative," Telmar commanded. Data flowed across the screen. The computer had studied every movement, every decision, every tactical choice made during the mission. Its conclusion appeared in neat text. Subject displays advanced military training across multiple disciplines. Estimated age during mission, 45-55 years. Psychological profile indicates high intelligence, exceptional emotional control, extensive combat experience, and strong protective instincts toward civilians. Current age would be approximately 60-70 years. Telmar frowned. The age range was too wide to be helpful, but it did eliminate some possibilities. Colonel Jamin would have been too young 15 years ago. Major Sujin would have been barely out of training, but it fit Han perfectly. Telmar shook his head. He was letting paranoia cloud his judgment. The fact that Han was the right age did not make him a legendary warrior. Millions of humans were in their 60s. Most of them were probably retired people who enjoyed peaceful lives, not secret weapons waiting to be activated. Still, Telmar decided to increase surveillance on all the human military personnel. Better to be too careful than not careful enough. Meanwhile, in the station's research section, Dr. Rickson was conducting her own investigation. She had spent the night studying human military history, psychology, and biology. What she had learned disturbed her. "The human capacity for violence is remarkable," she said to her research assistant, a young centauri named Velson. "But so is their capacity for restraint." "How do you mean?" Velson asked. "Look at this data," Dr. Rickson said, pointing to charts on her screen. "Humans have fought wars constantly throughout their history. They have weapons that could destroy entire planets. But in the last 50 years, as they joined galactic society, their conflicts have decreased dramatically. Maybe they're just hiding their true nature," Velson suggested. "Or maybe they're evolving," Dr. Rickson replied. "The interesting thing about the Kepler station operative is not just the skill level, but the restraint shown. Watch the footage. Again, every action was designed to minimize casualties, even among the enemy forces. They watched the video together one more time. Dr. Rixon pointed out details she had noticed. Here, the operative could have killed these 3 rebels easily, but instead used non-lethal methods to disable them. Here, the soldier stops to give medical aid to a wounded enemy, and here, at the end, the operative personally carries injured civilians to safety. A warrior with a conscience, Velson said. More than that, Dr. Rixon said. A warrior who understands that the goal is not to destroy enemies, but to protect innocents. That level of moral development combined with that level of skill, it's remarkable. And frightening, Velson added. Dr. Rixon nodded. Yes, because it suggests that humans can be both angels and demons, depending on the circumstances. The question is, what circumstances would turn a peaceful people back into warriors? In another part of the station, Commander Zalvin was having a meeting with his military staff. The conference room was full of senior officers from a dozen different worlds, all studying tactical displays and combat analyses. The human fighting style is unlike anything we've seen, Commander Zalvin said. It combines elements from multiple military traditions, but follows patterns that suggest entirely new approaches to warfare. The speed is what concerns me, said Admiral Korthvon, a massive being whose species had evolved from ocean predators. My people are among the fastest warriors in the galaxy, but this human moves faster than our reflexes can follow. It's not just speed, corrected General Vexmar. It's efficiency. Every motion serves multiple purposes. Every decision accounts for variables we haven't even considered. Look at this tactical sequence, said Colonel Yithron, pointing to a specific part of the footage. The operative uses the station's own defensive systems against the rebels. That requires detailed knowledge of alien technology, engineering principles, and system vulnerabilities. Commander Zalvin studied the display. Which means this soldier had to learn those skills somewhere. Humans don't naturally understand our technology. Training, said Admiral Korthvon. Extensive, comprehensive training in multi-species warfare. But who would provide such training? Asked General Vexmar. And why? The room fell silent as they considered the implications. If humans had soldiers trained to fight against any species in the galaxy, what did that say about their long-term intentions? Back in the main conference hall, the afternoon session was about refugee assistance programs. But many of the delegates seemed distracted. They kept looking at their personal devices, watching the footage again or reading analyses that had been circulating. Hansol noticed the change in atmosphere. The aliens were nervous, jumpy. Several times he saw delegates point in his direction and whisper to their neighbors. He could not understand why the human delegation seemed to be getting so much attention. During a break, he approached Dr. Yan He. Is everything all right? He asked. The delegates seem unusually agitated today. Dr. Yan He looked uncomfortable. There's been some discussion about human military capabilities. Some old footage has surfaced that has people concerned. What kind of footage? Hansol asked. From the colonial conflicts, Dr. Yan He said carefully. A mission that happened about 15 years ago. I think it's making some people nervous about human intentions. Hansol nodded slowly. Old wars have a way of haunting peace talks, he said. I hope it doesn't interfere with the progress we've been making. I hope so too, Dr. Yan He replied. But she was watching Hansol's face carefully, looking for some sign of recognition or concern. Hansol's expression remained calm and thoughtful. If the footage bothered him, he did not show it. As the day continued, more and more aliens found excuses to walk past the human delegation. Some pretended to be going to the refreshment area. Others claimed they needed to check something at the information displays. But Hansol noticed that many of them slowed down when they passed, studying the humans with curious or worried expressions. It reminded him of old times when he would enter a room and feel hostile eyes watching him. But this was different. These beings did not seem hostile exactly. They seemed cautious, like people who had learned that something they thought was harmless might actually be dangerous. During the final session of the day, Ambassador Keira gave a speech about the importance of trust in building lasting peace. But Hansol noticed that even she kept glancing at the human delegation. Trust is not something that can be demanded, she said. It must be earned through consistent actions over time. We must judge each other not by our capacity for harm, but by our choices about how to use that capacity. Her words seemed to be directed specifically at the humans, though she never said so directly. When the session ended, Hansol was surprised to see Security Chief Telmar approaching him. "Mr. Hansol," Telmar said, his 3 eyes studying the human carefully. "I wondered." The emergency alarm started at 3 in the morning station time. Hansol woke immediately, as he had trained himself to do for 40 years. The soft chiming sound meant a technical problem, not an attack, but his body was already moving before. His mind fully understood what was happening. He pulled on his clothes and stepped into the corridor. Emergency lights cast red shadows on the walls, and he could hear the station's computer making announcements in multiple languages. "Attention all residents. We are experiencing a failure in the primary atmospheric recycling system. This is not immediately dangerous, but all personnel must report to designated safety areas for accountability and possible evacuation procedures." Hansol joined the stream of beings moving through the corridors. Most were still half asleep, confused, and worried. He noticed that the station crew was doing their best to keep everyone calm, but they looked stressed. As they reached the main gathering area, Hansol could see the problem was serious. The large display screens showed system diagrams with angry red warning lights. Several sections of the station were highlighted in yellow, indicating areas where air quality was becoming questionable. The crowd of delegates and staff was growing larger and more nervous. Beings from different worlds had different needs for breathing, temperature, and humidity. If the atmospheric systems failed completely, some species would die within hours. "Please remain calm," announced Station Commander Vreltak, a tall being with blue skin and silver hair. "We are working to restore the primary systems. In the meantime, we need everyone to move to the emergency shelters in an orderly fashion." But the crowd was not staying calm. Someone near the back started pushing toward the exits. A group of insect-like beings began making high-pitched clicking sounds that their translators turned into panic expressions. Several young aliens started crying. Hansol found himself moving before he thought about it. Years of training and experience took over, and he began doing what he had always done in crisis situations. He started organizing people. "Excuse me," he said to a station security officer who looked overwhelmed. "You need to separate the groups by atmospheric requirements. The methane breathers should go to Shelter 3, the high-oxygen species to Shelter 1. The security officer stared at him. "How do you know our emergency protocols?" "Common sense," Hansol said. "Different species, different needs. Also, you should put families with children first, and anyone with medical conditions." Without waiting for permission, Hansol began moving through the crowd. He spoke quietly to people, directing them toward the appropriate exits. When he found beings who looked confused or scared, he stayed with them until they understood where to go. Dr. Rixon watched from across the room as the old human worked. She had been studying human behavior for months, but she had never seen anything like this. Hansol moved through the crowd with complete confidence, seeming to know exactly where everyone should go and how to get them there safely. "Fascinating," she murmured to herself. "What is?" asked Veltar, who had appeared beside her. "Watch the human Hansol," Dr. Rixon said. "Look at how he moves, how he positions himself, how he reads the crowd." Veltar's golden eyes followed her gaze. After a few minutes, his fur began to stand up along his neck. "He's not just helping," Veltar said slowly. "He's controlling the entire situation." Dr. Rixon nodded. "Every person he talks to moves exactly where he wants them to go. Every group he organizes flows smoothly to their designated areas. And look at his positioning." She pointed to where Hansol was standing. "From that spot, he can see all the exits, monitor the crowd density in each section, and quickly reach any area where problems might develop." "That's not accident," Veltar said. "No," Dr. Rixon agreed. "That's training." Across the room, Ambassador Keira was also watching Hansol. She had seen many emergency situations during her long career in diplomacy, and she knew the difference between someone who was helping and someone who was leading. Hansol was leading. He never raised his voice or gave direct orders, but somehow everyone around him ended up doing exactly what needed to be done. When a group of elderly delegates needed assistance, Han Sol appeared with young volunteers to help them. When a family got separated in the crowd, Han Sol guided them back together and made sure they stayed near the front of the evacuation line. Most remarkably, he seemed to anticipate problems before they happened. When Ambassador Kara saw a group of large beings from the Heavy World Alliance starting to push toward an exit, Han Sol was already there, politely suggesting they use a different route that could better handle their size and weight. How did he know they would cause a bottleneck? Ambassador Kara asked herself. The answer came to her slowly, like pieces of a puzzle fitting together. Han Sol had been watching the crowd the same way she had seen generals watch battlefields. He was reading the flow of people, predicting their movements, and making tiny adjustments to prevent problems. It was exactly the kind of tactical thinking she had seen in the Kepler station footage. Ambassador Kara pulled out her personal device and called up the video file. She watched it again, but this time she ignored the fighting and focused on how the soldier moved through spaces, how they positioned themselves, how they seemed to know exactly where enemies would be and what they would do. The same spatial awareness. The same predictive ability, the same calm efficiency. "Oh no," she whispered. Meanwhile, Han Sol was helping a young alien child who had gotten scared and hidden under a table. He knelt down to the child's level and spoke in a gentle voice. "Hey there," he said. "Are you okay?" The child was from a species Ambassador Kara did not recognize. They had large eyes and soft fur, and they were trembling with fear. "The lights are scary," the child said in a small voice. "I know," Han Sol said, "but they're just there to help us see in the dark, like a flashlight when you're camping. Do you know what camping is?" The child shook their head. "It's when you sleep outside under the stars," Han Sol explained. "Sometimes it gets dark, and you need a light to find your way. These red lights are doing the same thing. They're helping us find our way to safety." The child's trembling stopped. "Really?" "Really," Han Sol said. "And I'm going to make sure you get to your family safely, okay?" The child nodded and took Han Sol's hand. As they walked toward the family reunion area, Ambassador Kara noticed something that made her breath catch. Han Sol was moving through the crowd, using the exact same efficient paths she had seen the Ghost of Kepler station use through the rebel-held corridors. The same economy of motion, the same awareness of everything happening around him. She looked at her device again, comparing the soldier in the video to the man helping a frightened child. The age was right. The build was right. The tactical instincts were identical. But more than that, there was something in the way Han Sol treated the child that matched how the ghost had treated hostages in the footage. The same gentle protectiveness. The same calm presence that made scared people feel safe. Ambassador Kara felt her world shifting. The legendary warrior that had her entire species worried was standing 20 feet away from her, comforting a child and organizing an evacuation with the same skills he had once used to defeat an army. As the night continued, more people began to notice what Dr. Rickson and Ambassador Kara had seen. Commander Zalvin watched Han Sol coordinate with station security and realized that the human was giving suggestions that the trained professionals immediately adopted. Dr. Yan He saw her colleague organize a complex evacuation with techniques she had only read about in military manuals. But Han Sol seemed unaware of the attention he was getting. He was focused entirely on the task at hand, making sure everyone got to safety. When a station engineer asked for help with crowd control near a damaged section, Han Sol provided it. When the medical staff needed someone to help carry injured beings, Han Sol volunteered. By dawn, the atmospheric systems had been repaired and everyone was safe. The emergency was over, but something fundamental had changed. As delegates returned to their quarters, many of them were thinking the same thing. They had just watched the Ghost of Kepler station in action, and he had used his legendary skills, not to fight enemies, but to save lives. Ambassador Kara lingered in the gathering area as the crowd dispersed. When Han Sol walked past her, she made a decision. "Mr. Han Sol," she said quietly. He stopped and turned to her. "Ambassador, I hope your delegation is all safe." "Yes, thank you," she said. "That was impressive work tonight." Han Sol shrugged. "Everyone did their part. The station crew handled the real work." "Is that how you see it?" Ambassador Kara asked, studying his face. "It's how it was," Han Sol replied simply. Ambassador Kara looked into his eyes for a long moment. She saw kindness there, and wisdom, and something else that might have been sadness. But she also saw the same calm competence that had made the ghost of Kepler Station a legend. "I think we need to talk," she said finally. Han Sol nodded slowly. "I suppose we do." As they walked toward a quiet corner of the station, Ambassador Kara wondered how the galaxy would change when everyone learned that their most feared legend was actually a gentle old man who grew vegetables and helped frightened children find their families. But she also wondered what would happen if that gentle old man ever decided that the galaxy need. Ambassador Kara led Han Sol to a small observation deck that overlooked the station's central garden. The artificial sunlight was dimmed for the night cycle, casting long shadows across paths where alien plants from dozens of worlds grew together, in carefully planned harmony. They sat on a bench facing the stars. For several minutes, neither of them spoke. Finally, Ambassador Kara pulled out her personal device and activated the video file. The familiar scenes from Kepler Station began to play, showing the ghost moving through corridors with deadly efficiency. Han Sol watched without expression. When the video ended, he was quiet for a long moment. "That was a long time ago," he said finally. 15 years, Ambassador Kara confirmed. "You were 52 then?" Han Sol nodded. "Different circumstances. Different world, but the same person," Ambassador Kara said. "The same man who organized the evacuation tonight with the same tactical precision we see in this footage." Han Sol looked out at the stars. "The techniques are useful for more than fighting. Crowd control, emergency response, logistics, the skills transfer." "Is that all they are to you?" Ambassador Kara asked. "Just transferable skills?" Han Sol was quiet for a while, thinking. When he spoke again, his voice was softer. "I joined the military when I was 18 years old," he said. "I thought I was going to see the galaxy, maybe help keep peace between different worlds. I never expected to become what I became." "What did you become?" Ambassador Kara asked, gently. "A weapon," Han Sol said simply. "A very efficient weapon that could solve problems other weapons couldn't solve. For 34 years, whenever there was a situation that required someone to go places others couldn't go and do things others couldn't do, they sent me." He gestured at the video. Kepler Station was the worst of it. 347. Innocent people held hostage by rebels who had nothing to lose. The negotiators tried for 3 days. The rebels just kept making more demands and threatening to kill more hostages. "So they sent you." "They sent me," Han Sol confirmed. "One person, going in alone, with orders to get everyone out alive if possible." "And you did?" "I did." Han Sol's voice was flat. "I saved every hostage. I neutralized every rebel. And when it was over, I looked at what I had become and decided I didn't want to be that person anymore." Ambassador Kara studied his profile in the dim light. "You retired immediately after." "I requested transfer to inactive status the same day," Han Sol said. "High Command tried to convince me to stay. They said the galaxy needed soldiers like me, but I knew that if I kept going, eventually there would be nothing left of the person I used to be. So you became a gardener instead." Han Sol smiled slightly. "Among other things, I taught myself to grow things instead of destroying them. I learned to build instead of breaking down. I discovered that creating something beautiful takes more skill than creating something terrible." They sat quietly for a while, watching the stars turn slowly past the observation window. "Are you afraid of me now?" Han Sol asked finally. Ambassador Kara considered the question seriously. "I should be," she said. "Every military analysis of that footage concludes that you could single-handedly defeat most planetary defense forces. But you're not afraid." "No," Ambassador Kara said, "because tonight I watched you use those same abilities to save lives instead of taking them. I saw you comfort a frightened child with the same hands that once wielded weapons of war." Han Sol nodded. "That's the choice, isn't it? What you do with the capabilities you have." "My people will want to know about this," Ambassador Kara said. "The other delegates, the military commanders, the security forces, they're all afraid of the ghost of Kepler Station." "And what will you tell them?" Ambassador Kara thought about this. "I'll tell them the truth. that the ghost of Kepler Station is a retired old man who grows vegetables and helps lost children find their families. Some of them won't find that reassuring, Han Sol said. No, Ambassador Kara agreed. Some will be more afraid, knowing that such power can hide behind such a gentle appearance. Others will be hopeful, seeing that warriors can choose to become gardeners. Which are you? Hopeful, Ambassador Kira said without hesitation. Because if someone with your capabilities can choose peace, maybe there's hope for all of us. The next morning, word spread quickly through the station. Ambassador Kara had called a meeting of the senior delegates to discuss new information, relevant to galactic security. She had not revealed what that information was, but everyone suspected it had something to do with the Kepler station footage. The meeting was held in a smaller conference room, with only the most senior representatives from each major faction present. Han Sol was specifically invited to attend. When he entered the room, Han Sol could feel the change in atmosphere. The delegates who had been chattering nervously fell silent. Dr. Rixon, Commander Zalvin, Security Chief Telmar, and a dozen other influential beings watched him with new eyes. Thank you all for coming, Ambassador Kara began. I've asked you here because recent events have revealed something important about our human colleagues. She activated the room's main display, showing the familiar footage from Kepler Station. But this time, she also showed security recordings from the previous night's evacuation, split-screen style. On the left, you see the legendary ghost of Kepler Station 15 years ago, she said. On the right, you see the evacuation coordination from last night. I want you to pay attention not to what is being done, but to how it is being done. The room watched in fascination as the two videos played side by side, the same efficient movements, the same spatial awareness, the same calm decision-making under pressure. The person in both videos, Ambassador Kara said, is sitting in this room right now. Every eye turned to Han Sol. He remained calm, his hands folded in his lap, meeting their gazes without defensiveness or pride. Commander Zalvin was the first to speak. You're the ghost of Kepler Station. I was, Han Sol said quietly, but that was a different time, and I was a different person. Were you? Dr. Rixon asked. Last night you displayed the same tactical brilliance, the same protective instincts, the same leadership capabilities. The same tools, Han Sol agreed, but used for different purposes. Security. Chief Telmar leaned forward. Why didn't you tell us who you were? Would it have helped the peace talks? Han Sol asked. Would knowing my past have made it easier for different species to work together? The room was quiet as they considered this. What if we need the ghost again? Commander Zalvin asked. What if there's another crisis like Kepler Station? Han Sol was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was thoughtful and sad. I hope that never happens, he said. I hope we build a galaxy where problems are solved with words instead of weapons, where differences are settled with negotiation instead of force. But if it does happen, Dr. Rixon pressed. Han Sol met her eyes. Then we would remember how, but we would rather not. Ambassador Kara stepped forward. This is why I wanted you all to know, she said. Not to create fear, but to create understanding. The humans have the capacity for great violence, yes, but they also have the wisdom to choose restraint. They have warriors who can become gardeners, and gardeners who can become warriors again if necessary. That's terrifying, said the Crystal Federation delegate. And reassuring, said Dr. Sulmara from the Agricultural Coalition. It means they understand responsibility. The debate that followed was intense, but respectful. Some delegates argued that beings with such capabilities should be monitored or restricted. Others contended that the choice to use power peacefully was exactly what made humans valuable allies. Han Sol listened to it all without defending himself or arguing for his people. When asked direct questions, he answered honestly and completely. When the discussion turned to policy implications, he offered thoughtful insights about human nature and motivations. Finally, the Pacifist Coalition's senior delegate asked the question everyone was thinking. What do you want from us, knowing what we know now? Han Sol stood up slowly. For a moment he looked very tired, like a man carrying the weight of many years and many choices. I want what I've always wanted, he said. I want different peoples to find ways to live together peacefully. I want problems to be solved through understanding instead of force. I want children from all our worlds to grow up in a galaxy where they're more likely to become scientists or artists or farmers than soldiers." He paused, looking around the room at faces that represented dozens of different species and cultures. "I spent most of my life learning how to fight," he continued, "but the most important thing I ever learned was when to stop fighting. That's what I hope for all of us. Not that we lose the ability to defend ourselves, but that we gain the wisdom to know when defense is necessary and when it isn't." The room was completely silent. "The ghost of Kepler Station is dead," Han Sol said finally. "I killed him the day I decided to grow tomatoes instead of ending lives. But if you ever need him again, if the galaxy faces a threat that requires someone to go into the darkness so others can stay in the light, then we'll remember how." He sat back down, and the debate continued for another hour. But the tone had changed. Instead of fear or suspicion, there was a strange kind of respect in the room, not just for Han Sol's abilities, but for his choices. When